Hello, so I'm going to do a Geiger counter video, and this is going to be a video on the best Geiger counter I've actually ever used, probably the best bit of radiation detecting equipment I've used full stop. I had to do quite a bit of research before I got one of these, or even find out they existed, sadly, because, as you know, I've got quite into collecting Geiger counters, dosimeters, ion chamber units, all those sort of radiation detecting things, as well as gas masks, or military surplus stuff. And the issue is, with a lot of it, is you can find stuff that's very good at doing specific roles, but then it has a lot of drawbacks. Now, for ages, what I've wanted is a really good digital little Geiger counter that you can carry around on you as an EDC item if you want. It does both a dosimeter and a Geiger counter function, so the Geiger counter measuring the equivalent dose of radiation, or essentially counting the amount of radiation you're encountering, and the dosimeter function logging for you how much radiation you would have absorbed, or the Geiger counter's absorbed, since it's been turned on. Now, annoyingly, there are quite a few digital models on the marketplace, but a lot of them have a lot of drawbacks, which a lot of people don't seem to know about, and it's only as you start getting more into the radioactive stuff that you start finding out, oh, it can't do something that should be a very obvious design feature. So I ended up getting Terra P Plus. Now, for most people, I think the standard Terra P would be better, and it's cheaper. I just saw there's a couple of functions on this where I thought, I might as well pay a little bit more, get the Terra P Plus, and then not, think, oh, I wish I had that feature further down the road. So this is very, very simple to operate. It works a bit like a watch, one of those old smartwatches where you've essentially got two buttons to program it. So on here we've got the main mode first of all. This is showing you how much radiation you're currently encountering. I've got the beta shield closed at the moment, we'll go over that in a moment. So at the moment it's saying that we're at 0.19 microsieverts an hour, or 0.20 microsieverts an hour. That is pretty standard background levels in most places. Nearly everywhere I've been has been between 0.1 and 0.2. So that's pretty accurate. So then if we go to mode, what we do now is we go to the dose. And notice this is a very high number actually. This is 9.68 millisieverts. This is about 4 years annual dose for most people of background. The reason it's so high, even though I've only had this about a week, is because I've been stress testing it. And I'm very, very pleased to say it's done exactly what I wanted. Not crashed, not given false low readings. It just keeps on working. So that's very good. So the next mode, which is the one I've not really tested too much about yet, is beta flux density. I believe this is to tell you something to do with like beta energy fields, or the amount of surface contamination or something. Again, I don't really need this feature, but it was one this one did and the cheaper model didn't, so I thought I'll get this in case I ever need it in the future and then go, oh no, I've not got that model. Okay, so then what it does is, I believe this is to show you how many hours it's been on since you've last, used it, or since then you put the batteries in. So I believe that's 102 hours it's saying there, because obviously beforehand it would just be saying something like 20.30 as in 20 hours 30 minutes. But I believe now it's saying, it's at 102 hours, and it will only update now every hour. So that gives you an idea of how long it's been on, functioning, and then you can program it with a clock with the current time. So there we go. If you press the threshold button on any of the screens, you get a nice little red backlight, so you can read it in the dark. But that doesn't stay on all the time to conserve batteries. So we'll go back to the first mode. Another thing you can program on it is the alarm. I've got the alarms turned off personally, because if you're experimenting a lot with radioactive substances, you don't want the alarm constantly sounding because it gets irritating. It also does beep every time it does a count, which I'll turn on and off for you in a minute to show you how easy that is to do. I was finding that a bit complicated when I first got this, but I realised I was holding the buttons down too long. You only need to really quickly press them. That was the issue. This also came with a nice little carry bag, which I'll show you in a minute, even though lots of reviews have said these are bad. I don't know why, because it fits inside perfectly, and it's a nice little leather pouch for it, even though people are like, oh, it doesn't fit inside, right? So let me just show you that actually, just to prove that. So here we go. So I'm pretty sure you're meant to have it this way up, look, so the hole goes over where the speaker is. So what we do, pretty simple, you get this, you slide it in, look, all the way up, so you can get out both the buttons. Then what you want to do is just literally zip it up. Obviously you just need to compress it a little bit to get it in, but yeah, there we go. Look, it's zipped up in its carry case, it fits fine. You've got the leather carry case with the little nice strong belt buckle there if you want it in there. For the video though, I'm not going to have it in there, just simply because if I want to take the beta shield off and, show you it taking readings, you don't want that on there. So, gives you some units on the back. Now, as far as I'm aware, the differences between this and the regular Terra P is generally on the screen of the normal Terra P, it shows you a battery indicator and what the millisieverts are, microsieverts. I think the regular Terra P is designed to be easier for people to understand who don't work with radiation. This one is kind of a bit more specialised of a model. I think they did some improvements to the case toughness, and also for anybody saying the case feels you know, weak on this, that is definitely wrong. Compare it to the SOX I've got, and I want to do a comparison with the SOX, showing them both counting, to show you why this beats loads and loads of other models. Much flimsier plastic on the SOX than this. You know, if I smack these together long enough, this will break the SOX, no question about it. So what I want to demonstrate on this is how both of these, you know, count. I've got not the original tube in the SOX at the moment, that's a replaced tube, but that still works fine. This, I believe, uses a Soviet, like an upgraded version of the Soviet/Russian SBM-20 series of Geiger tubes. It's like one of the modernised ones, you know, where that series keeps living on in like more and more modern reimitations of it. Seems to be a very good tube. I can show you the tube actually if I take the beta cover off. There we go. There's that with the beta cover off. And what you can actually see is that they put a bit of shielding on there. Looks like either a bit of lead or steel. The idea being that that actually, you know, stops it from reading beta radiation when you don't want it to. So there's the tube in there. As you can see, they've also wrapped it in plastic to stop the tube getting wet and to make it easy to wipe down if you get contaminants on it. A very good idea. A lot of Geiger counters don't consider this. So yeah, the idea is that if you've got something radioactive on it, you probably want to clean it, don't you, so you don't contaminate anything or you don't get false readings. Lots of Geiger counters don't even bear that in mind anymore. With the Terra P, they've literally wrapped it in plastic so you can get a wet cloth, wipe it down. The insides aren't going to get damp and you've wiped the contamination off. Brilliant. You know, that's what you want. So the SOX is reading higher, although it does seem to be going down. But what I'm going to do now is just demonstrate this working on a high radioactive sample. Now, the main reason I wanted this is that the issue you end up having with lots and lots of Geiger counters is a limited range. Now, on the big old bulky military ones, that's not so much of an issue. And I've just got to show you here a Polish DP75. So, in terms of range, you know, this is a big bulky old unit, shielded unit, very, very good. But the issue with a DP75 is, if we look at it, that I've not got batteries in this at the moment, but this goes up on the range from less than 1, sort of a times 0.1 multiplier, all the way up to measuring 500 Rontgen per hour. So it essentially goes from less than 1 millirontgen per hour all the way up to 500 Rontgen per hour. That's a very good range on an old Geiger counter. The issue is, though, that you don't want to carry something like this around on you all the time, do you? So a lot of people, I think, have this dilemma of they want something that's as practical as the old military units, but they, you know, want something small and digital, which I can completely understand. That's what I wanted as well. Whereas this actually has an even bigger measuring range than the old DP75. This goes from 0.001 microsieverts essentially. As you can see, it's on 0.26 microsieverts at the moment, so it can go from 0, you know, to 0.1 microsieverts essentially. I don't think you'd ever get that low amount of radiation. And then it can go all the way up to millisieverts and sieverts. So I think it maxes out apparently at 9.999 sieverts, which is 9,999 millisieverts. In grays, that's 9.99 grays, essentially 10 grays. In Rontgens, that's, I think, about 10,000 Rontgen. So to give you an idea at what this maxes out at, this maxes out where you're dead. And it measures from, it can measure essentially lower things than you'd ever get on radiation. So this will cover you completely on radiation readings. Now, they do disclaim, and I actually like the fact that the manufacturers of this Ecotest do tell you this. Now, this particular Geiger counter, when you start getting into the bigger measurement ranges, you know, like the hundreds or thousands of Rontgens, or, you know, sieverts, millisieverts, it's not going to be as accurate. The reason being that how GM tubes work, they can become oversaturated. So the higher and higher the readings start going, the less and less accurate it becomes. I think it becomes as inaccurate as 25% when you're up to doomsday levels. But to be honest, if you're already at the stage where you were reading something like 10,000 Rontgen, ooh, you know, I'd be very worried anyway. But yeah, the point is this goes to at least 1,000 Rontgen, you know, like 10, yeah, it's 10 sieverts, essentially, just over 1,000 Rontgen. So the point being, it goes to the levels where you're dead, and to the levels much, much lower than you'd ever get at background radiation. Now, the problem with something like the SOX, let me just explain this quickly, because people don't kind of get why I don't like this as much now, when I used to like it a lot more. The SOX officially can go up to 1 millisievert. Bear in mind, it can go up to 9,999 millisieverts. I can't even get it to go to 1 millisievert. The problem is, on the accumulative dose, yes, I can get it to go to millisieverts, but if I put this over 1 millisievert per hour in radiation fields, what ends up happening to it is it gives you a really false low report, which I can show you in a minute. The highest I've ever got it to read, I think, is about 800, but most of the time it reads about 400 to 500 if you're lucky. So you'd think, you know, it's a 3.6 Rontgen problem. It tells you it's much safer than it actually is if you're in a high radiation field. And the batteries drain super fast, you know, it overheats and all that sort of stuff. That was the reason I had to replace a GM tube in it. The old one cooked. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually demonstrate this one working, and then I'm going to quickly show you why the SOEX doesn't work as well in the same bit of video. So what we're going to do here is get my big scary box up, and I'll put the thing on first. So if you just push these two buttons in together, which is easier said than done, hang on because I'm not looking at it as I do it, there we go, it says that means audio is on. So let me go back to dose rate, there we go. And every time it counts a decay, it will beep. So if we get a box with a load of radium and stuff in it, there we go. 172 microsieverts, 167 microsieverts. Right, now let's get what's in that bag out. That's the really scary stuff. Radium. So you go, a load of radium. Oh yeah, listen to that guy. So yeah, we'll put him flush on there. Notice it's already gone to 740, 800 odd microsieverts. Let's see if we can get him over a millisievert. There we go. So yeah, 1.2 millisieverts, 1.3, almost 1.4, 1.5. See how quickly the numbers update on that, 1.8. It's different areas of it will be higher or lower in radioactivity. Let's see if we can get to 2 millisieverts. Probably can in a second. Yeah, there we go, we're over 2 millisieverts. So I'm not going to hold that down for much longer, but what I'll show you is if I go into mode now and go into dose, you'll be able to see the numbers clocking over in real time. See that? That's because of how high the dose is. In background radiation things, it would normally be every 10 hours you'd see that number move, not less than every second. So there we go, that's definitely working. So there you go, that's that, and I want to show you how good the shielding is on this as well before I forget. Okay, so what we've got here is the really strong little bit of strontium-90. And what I want to see is what reading this goes up to, and then we'll see what the beta flux density says. But regarding shielding, what you'll notice is if I'm holding the strontium-90 across most of this dosimeter, it's not getting readings from it, right? It's only when I get it to where the beta tube is, oh, there we go, with the beta shield open, that it takes readings. So it's actually a properly shielded Geiger counter. Shielded is the important part. So anyway, the dose rate from this is at least 2.5, 2.3. It's going to depend just how across the tube it is. But the point is that's really hot, right? That's 2.3 millisieverts. I think this is about, you know, roughly 230 millirontgen per hour in the old Rontgen units. Let's see what the beta flux density thing does now, just while we're on that. So there's the beta flux density. Let's look at what the number does on there. See, I don't know exactly what this tells you. I don't know if it's like the Kev or Mev of the beta source. I don't, you know, I was trying to read up on it. There is a very good instruction manual of this, but I've just not read all of it yet, to be honest. But yeah, so that function at least works. I can't tell you what the numbers mean because I don't exactly know. The only thing I'd like on this, but they don't do it, is if it actually gave you a counts per second or counts per minute interface. That's the only thing that's lacking, because that's technically what Geiger counters measure, so it'd be nice if more of them actually, because you can hear it's physically counting when it ticks, but you know. So anyway. So the point I want to get across is on this, if I put the strontium-90 on it, it only registers when it's above the beta tube like it should, because the housing is good enough that it only allows gamma through. And you get a very high reading, and you get that reading very quickly. What I'm going to show you in a moment is what actually happens on this, or more exactly, what happens on the SOEX if you expose it to the same check source. Because all of a sudden you'll see, oh, it can't actually tell you at all what it's expecting. So anyway, if I get the strontium-90 now, look, and I go around the case with it, what you should see is it's only when I get very close to that back cover with the shield on that you'll get a reading through it. And that could actually be due to radiation breaking, rather than, or it could just be the energy of the strontium-90 lets it through. But the point is that, unlike a lot of Geiger counters, when you've got, like, little ones anyway, it's got a way of discerning between beta and gamma with a little shielded hatch you can close on it. Lots of things like the SOEX don't. The Gamma Scouts do. And the point is that actually works fairly well, because with the strontium-90 you have to get very, very close before it starts giving you a reading. And because of radiation breaking, X-rays being created from the beta particles very quickly being stopped by the shielding, that could actually be X-rays coming through. Hard to tell. Anyway, let me now show you why I like this a lot more than the SOEX. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one on a lower strength sample. I'm going to put the SOEX directly on top of this, and we'll see what the numbers come out as, because it's going to be very different. Right, hopefully I can sort the framing of this out. So what we're going to do is pop the SOEX here, and it should start counting up soon because it's near some check sources. So let's put this guy, actually I'll tell you what, I'm not going to even open the beta shield on him, I'm just going to stick him there like that on these samples, so he's just going to read gamma off of them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this next to the SOEX, and what I want you to see is just, ooh, and they're not even in frame, so good thing I checked that, is just see how quickly the Terra P comes up with a real number, and how slowly it takes the SOEX. So what you can see there is, despite the fact the SOEX is being exposed to a lot of radiation, it's only reading 44. Now it's jumped up 89. Bear in mind that it's actually over 2 millisieverts, so essentially the SOEX should be reading 2300, 2400. That one, as I said, I've only exposed it to a bit of gamma underneath, but it gives you an idea of just how much better the Terra P is because of how quickly it can update. So yeah, the SOEX is both in a gamma field that's very strong, and yeah, so I'll tell you what I can do. If I just lift up the Terra P a moment, move this bag. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'll put this bag just here. Actually, let's stick the SOEX directly on him. And then, let's put the strontium-90 there. The point I'm making is that with this, look, oh, the SOEX says it's only 226, and he's very slowly climbing up. But the point being that it just takes ages and ages to update on the SOEX, which isn't good if you're in a high radiation field, and he'll max out in a minute, much lower than his, what the manufacturers say it does. So yeah, just to demonstrate with this one again, what's he at the moment? Ooh, if it will focus on the screen. Does the autofocus want to work? Yeah, it's saying 0.34, 0.45 because I'm up here. Put it down there, and what you'll instantly notice is that it updates very, very quickly. See that? Yeah. So if you're being irradiated, it tells you much, much faster than the SOEX. You know, it gives you a warning. So the reason I ended up finding out the Terra P existed is I found some videos of people going around Chernobyl actually taking measurements that were realistic high measurements, as in somebody put a Terra P next to the fireman's boot and, you know, was getting in the Pripyat basement hospital and was getting a reading of something like 800, 900 millisieverts, which, like things like the SOEX and the Gamma Scouts, they'll max out like 1 millisievert, 2 millisieverts. So it's the 3.6 Rontgen problem. So as you can see, that's actually quite a high reading from what I normally get from this. He's just slipped off, let me pop him back. But the point is, normally with the SOEX, yeah, this is kind of where he'll cut out. Also, you can see tube dead time on there. If I zoom in, see on the colour graph at the top, there's bits where it sort of looks like it's spiking down. That's where the tube, the electronics inside aren't good enough to keep up with the radiation field, as far as I'm aware. But the problem is that, yeah, the radiation level is much higher than what the SOEX is reporting, but it can't actually tell you that for whatever reason. Whereas the Terra P, you know, it very quickly gets a real number and it stays with it. So yeah, if you had something like the SOEX or a Gamma Scout, the issue is you could be encountering much more radiation than you realise, but the meter can't tell you that. So yeah, the SOEX at the moment is definitely being exposed to over a millisievert, but he's quite comfortable to sit in the mid-500s. So, you know, I think the reading you'd actually be getting on the SOEX should be about 3 millisieverts at this point. If you want, I'll tell you what, because the point is, you can see he's not moving much. What I'm going to do now is just open this guy up, put the strontium-90 back under him, and put him there, and let's see what number he goes to. I just need to get the strontium-90 directly across there. 1468, 1.83, yeah, see how quickly that guy just shoots up. Yeah, it's already, you know, like 5 times higher than what the SOEX was on at like 500 odd. So yeah, that's why this guy is much better than the SOEX. And he also has one other thing. So far he's not crashed whenever I've torture tested him like this for a couple of hours, unlike things like the SOEX where the batteries die. Takes 2 standard AAA batteries, and Ecotest estimate the batteries in there will last you about 6 to 9 months to a year, which is pretty damn good. You know, potentially even longer if you have the sound turned off, you barely use it. Whereas things like, yeah, the SOEX, I find you have to recharge them like at least once a week. So yeah, the Terra P lasts ages. The retail price of these, I think it's like 150 to 200 pounds sterling. Probably a bit different in dollars. For most people, I'd recommend the regular Terra P, not the Terra P Plus, but I just got the Plus because it was a little bit more expensive but had a few more features. And yeah, it very quickly gives you realistic readings. It's got the highest range of any of the Geiger counters I have. You can turn the beeping on or off. You know, it shows you your accumulative dose, which is always a nice thing. And yeah, it's just all in all a very, very good Geiger counter. I think anybody who buys one would be happy with it. Although, yeah, as again I've said, I found people giving it bad reviews because, you know, or I think the plastic should have been tougher, or I think that, you know, the carry case should have had a different zip system or something. But all in all, it's the best Geiger counter I have ever used. Much smaller in size than the old chunky Coldwell ones with a bigger range, and unlike things like the SOX, it doesn't, you know, just destroy itself when you put it in a high radiation field, so you know exactly what you're encountering. So yes, the Terra P Plus is a very, very good Geiger counter, and I'd highly recommend it.